Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the LSU Sports Insider podcast. Today is Monday, April the 7th. I'm Zach Ewing with Toyloy Brown. TJ, he's our men's basketball beat writer for The Advocate, covering LSU men's sports. And TJ, that meant kind of surprise. Final Four weekend, sometimes news drops.
Yep.
It turned into a busy weekend for you.
Yeah, busy weekend. LSU's making additions left and right, even some subtractions with players deciding to go into the portal, and also some news on a Monday as well.
Yeah, and so we'll start with that. It's, I guess, breaking news still. It's a couple of hours old now, but Ronald Dupree, former LSU player in the John Brady era, I think made a Sweet 16 with the Tigers, is back in the program. He is going to be, this is not unique to LSU. You start to see some teams do it, but it's the first time I think LSU has done it. Mm-hmm. He's going to be the program's general manager. So in essence, he is going to be, I don't know if he's equal with Matt McMahon or maybe even above Matt McMahon, but he's on a separate track. He is responsible for like transactions, right? Like a professional sports GM, where he is going to track NIL, do negotiations with agents. He is going to manage the roster, the budget, all that sort of stuff, so that Matt McMahon can focus a little more on the basketball.
Yeah, no, it's still pretty novel, still pretty new. I know Duke has a GM. Not every school has them, but a few others have them. And yeah, with NIL, with things related to really money being above board in the college landscape, you kind of need to mimic the sports landscape. And that includes having a general manager, having people that's in charge of getting players and understanding the landscape and sort of the recruiting part. I'm sure McMahon, and again, this is very fresh, so I haven't done as much digging yet as far as the hierarchy of roles and all those sort of things, but he's going to be very powerful in terms of making sure the talent acquisition is going to stay up to par. And McMahon, I'm sure, will have a voice, but this will be Dupree. He's a former LSU player, former LSU assistant. He was also in the Bucks front office for the last several years. I think he was a part of the 2021 championship run for the Bucks. So he has real NBA front office experience. He'll bring that to LSU, and he'll pretty much run the show as far as making sure we have the right dudes on the court. And it's really interesting. I'm very excited to see sort of how he, I guess, works during the season as well, not just during this off season. And yeah, it's gonna be very fun. This is a very, very new arrangement, and I'm very excited to see how that works out, because LSU wants to make sure they have a good team, not just next year, but years to come.
Yeah, and I don't know that you can tell right away how somebody's going to be at a new job, obviously. Mm-hmm. But Ronald Dupree seems like the right kind of guy for this job. He obviously has purple and gold in his blood.
Yep.
Okay, that's number one. So he cares about what happens here. But as you mentioned, he's worked in an NBA front office. He played in the NBA G League, or maybe even was D League at the time. I mean, it was right around the name change. He played in Europe. He understands players' options. He understands the dollar figures that are going to make sense to players and how to do those negotiations. So I think it could be really good for LSU. This whole show, as we welcome you in here, is really about what LSU can do this offseason to shake things up, because we talked about it when we did a season recap. Like, Matt McMahon is now squarely on the hot seat. It's his fourth year that he's going into. He went 3-15 in the SEC, one of two SEC teams not to make the big dance, and really wasn't even close. So he's got to make some changes, and this is one. We're going to talk about transfer portal. There's a lot of players coming in and out, which you expect after a season like that. And then the other one is he also hired a new assistant coach this morning. Or at least word leaked of it this morning from Indiana.
Yeah, Yasir Roseman, he's an assistant. He was at Indiana University the past 4 years, was their associate head coach last season. And he's someone that's known as a big-time assistant. He's coached Khalil Ware, other NBA players, Jalen Hood-Schifino. Back in the day at Oregon, he was an assistant on that staff. He was there for Aaron Brooks, and I think Oregon's his alma mater. So Roseman, he's someone that is, and I got, when I tweeted out the news and wrote my story, I've seen people from Indiana that are fans saying that he was one of the best things part of the program as far as development as well as recruiting players. Mackenzie Mbako, he's a player that's in the transfer portal right now. He was at Indiana the last 2 years, and he was a 5-star player that he helped Indiana grab. So he's definitely someone that has a track record for recruiting, has a track record of development. And yeah, I think it's something that LSU wants to have on their coaching staff to help McMahon make sure that he has, again, all the tools to build a good team. So I'm very, again, excited to see how Roseman fits in on the coaching staff. To my knowledge, last time I checked, I haven't seen which coach may be replaced. The full coaching staff roster hasn't been announced or isn't on the LSU website at this moment. But yeah, Roseman should be, very impactful. David Patrick, to my understanding, is still the associate coach, but he will have a voice. Roseman will have a voice. I think that's pretty large on the coaching staff.
Yeah, it looks like after the season, LSU kind of quietly let go Tim Kaine and Ronrico White. So
Got it.
they may still have one opening on that staff, but I think the bottom line here is Matt McMahon has added some experience to his staff. Roseman coached under Mike Woodson, who stepped down at Indiana, announced during the season he would step down after the year. It's interesting to see those sorts of shakeups because you look behind the scenes and it's like, well, what exactly worked? What exactly didn't work? Are we shaking things up just for the sake of it? And maybe that's what's needed, or does Roseman actually bring something in that's going to help this program? So that remains to be seen. We'll circle back to those moves toward the end of the show. We kind of want to talk about, as of this date, April 7th, is LSU better than it was on March 7th when the season ended? And again, we're speculating. Maybe the jury's out on that. But let's focus on the player side of things for a little while here. LSU's been very busy in the transfer portal. I think they've lost 5 players, brought in 4.
Lost
6 players.
Game 5 as of yesterday.
Okay, so yeah, we're even more busy than I thought. Like this is, you're talking about, and if you include guys like Cam Carter who are out of eligibility, it's even more of a shakeup than that. You're talking well over half the roster, well over half the minutes played are going to be going to different players. Yeah,
no, it's been an overhaul. That's the word I used in my last story when it comes to this roster. And they had needed new players. Not only the guys that graduated, but the guys they had that do have eligibility, they weren't good enough. It's just as clear as that. Damian Collins was the last player, or the most recent player, to announce that he's entering the transfer portal. He had a nice message on his Instagram. The redshirt junior, 6'9", former 5-star from Kentucky. Spent the last 2 years here. This was a real only full season because his first year at LSU, he dislocated his shoulder. And this is his first real healthy season where he played 20-plus minutes and just wasn't a good enough rebounder. Guys like Vyctorius Miller, who was a freshman, very talented. He had a rough patch in the conference play. Also had a couple ankle injuries, and he's also gone. Players of that, and also Corey Chest, who actually just recently, I think last night I saw he committed to Ole Miss. So Corey Chest, the redshirt freshman, that entered transfer portal, sort of lost favor in the rotation. When McMahon went to a 4-guard, one big lineup, he also suffered an injury, but he's going to Ole Miss, so we'll be seeing him in the SEC pretty soon or in the upcoming season. With the 5 players, a couple guards, a few bigs, one center, 1 forward, and 3 guards by my recollection. And they have one of them is a star or a big standout. The others come from a little bit lower major conferences where they were the best players on their team. One that came from a high major is a big man from Mississippi State, Michael Nwoko. And he's someone that is really good at rebounding. So, how do you want to start? Want to start with the best player?
Let's start with the star. You mentioned him from UNLV, Dedan Thomas, coming in. This guy was an all-conference player in the Mountain West, which obviously is not really a low major. I mean, that's a solid league, right? Maybe one rung below the power leagues, but still a very good league. Saw that conference win a couple games in the NCAA tournament, so he's playing against tough competition. And quite frankly, like I know, TJ, you describe yourself as like a film nerd. You just go watch these guys. He's fun to watch, man. Like he gets after it. He goes. He shares the ball. He's got some of these cross-court passes that you see more of like an NBA style, where you're like, as someone just watching in real time, you don't even see that the pass is there, and then all of a sudden the ball's there.
Yeah, no, he's an electric point guard, 6'1", sophomore. Next season he'll be a junior, but just finished his sophomore season. Still 19. That's also another thing that's very intriguing. He entered college a year early, so he's a very young sophomore. Very fast player, very electric ball handler. But also one thing that stood out is that he's not really a selfish ball handler. He's not hunting assists. He's not asking for 50 pick and rolls to be ran for him so he can hit the roll man and get the assist. He's really just running the system that he's given, which I think is really mature of him. And I'm sure that stood out to McMahon, who's also a former point guard at Appalachian State back in his day as a former walk-on. But Dedan's the star. He's the star of the transfer portal class thus far. He's someone that LSU frankly didn't have. Their point guard play last year was one of their biggest weaknesses, where they didn't have someone that could organize the team and make sure that good offense was always going to be something that they can rely on. I guess if I had to say one blemish, not even a blemish, but one concern is that he didn't shoot too many 3-pointers. He shot 36% from three, which is a good number, very fine number. It's just that he shot only like 1.72 per game, which is sort of very low for a smaller point guard. He's about 6'1", 185 pounds. I think the 185 pounds might be generous. He looks very small on the screen when I watched him. So if you're that size, I think you have to rely on that 3-pointer, or at least rely more on it, especially if you're in the SEC where there's the biggest of athletes. He's going to be guarded by bigger players routinely. And also the defensive concerns as well, because he's just a smaller guy.
Yeah.
But he's really good, though. Very talented.
You have to have that threat of the 3-pointer, at least make the guy think about it. And he shoots well enough, maybe that will happen. But I agree with you. He's got to get bigger. I mean, you think about this guy in an 18-game SEC season, you start to think he's going to get worn down.
Yep.
Now, again, he's only 19, probably still has
Exactly.
some time to put pounds on that frame. And look, we're nitpicking a little bit. Dedan Thomas is a coup for Matt McMahon. And this is a theme we're going to get to here as we continue to talk about the additions. But, we said at the end of the season, he's got an increased NIL budget. He's got to make that work. Right now, he's making it work. And Dedan is you got a guy who was a star at a pretty good program in UNLV. They weren't great last year, but they were solid.
Yeah, they weren't not a great team because of him. It was
Right.
other weaknesses on that team.
You figure a guy like that who enters the transfer portal is going to have dozens and dozens of options. They got him to come to Baton Rouge to a team that did have a terrible year last year. So something's going right there, whether it's the NIL or Matt McMahon's sales pitch, some combination of the two. Like, this is a coup for LSU.
Yeah. Can't emphasize enough. He's only 19 still. He turns 20 later this summer, I think. So he'll be 20 for the entirety of his junior season. And the hope is have a good year, keep McMahon, I guess, on the team as the coach. If they make the NCAA tournament, have him return for a senior year, and then you're really cooking with stuff, as he's a senior that knows the system inside and out. But the last thing I'll say about Dedan, even though he's really skinny, he's not afraid of contact. He's someone that is willing to draw it out. He drew a lot of fouls at the Mountain West Conference level. I think he'll be able to draw a lot of fouls. So let's say he struggles with being a little bit smaller. I think he'll get people in foul trouble, and that's a really, I guess, underrated thing in terms of an offensive star player. If they can't, I guess, make a whole bunch of shots sometimes, you just need to do a little foul grifting here and there. Not that he's a grifter, but just do some foul drawing. But no, he's very talented. He has the talent to be an SEC all first, second, third team type of player if things land right. And he's someone that should make other players better. He's not going to be easy to guard. He's going to be able to blow by guys, which will collapse defenses, and he'll be able to kick out the 3-point shooters or throw alley-oops. I can't emphasize enough. Very creative passer. He's also a lefty as well, so that's like another level of his trickiness. That he's a lefty. He can throw a left-handed pass. He's doing the left-handed floaters, left-handed mid-rangers, and obviously it's just a different type of player that's not as common in basketball. So yeah, I think this was a really good pickup. Just need to make sure that the athletes assist him on defense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Some of the other guys coming in, TJ, we'll kind of talk about them in a group. But you mentioned Michael Nwoku, the Mississippi State transfer, big man, 6'10", didn't play a ton, 15 minutes a game for Chris Beard's Ole Miss team. 6 points, 4.6 rebounds per game, 52.5% from the field. Solid addition, not a guy you're going to expect to star or maybe even start for LSU, but just some depth on the inside. Had Rashad King. He's a guard from Northeastern. He was first team all conference in the Colonial Athletic Association. Averaged 18.5 points a game, so he's a scorer, kind of a shooting guard. And then most recently we had Marcus Sutton from Omaha, who's also an all conference level player at a lower level school. So you and I were talking about this off air. Like, you just don't know sometimes with these guys. Like, you can roll your eyes and say, Northeastern and Omaha, and what are they going to bring to the SEC? Well, Walter Clayton, who's playing in the national championship game tonight, when he transferred to Florida, he averaged 6 points per game at Iona. All right? I don't think anybody in Gainesville was like celebrating in the streets when they got Walter Clayton to transfer in. He's turned into one of the best players in school history. Janai Broom at Auburn, Morehead State transfer. Again, you just don't know. You don't know if these guys are going to be role players, if they're just going to fizzle and disappear and not be able to compete physically in the SEC, or they might turn into these All-American type players. Like, that's where you have to trust Matt McMahon's scouting. But tell us about these guys and who sticks out to you.
Yeah, no, for sure. Start with Nwoku, the Mississippi State player. And all these guys have SEC size, by the way. So one thing, if you have to sort of understand when you see transfers that go to no-name schools or little-known schools, like you have to sort of look at the measurables. Can they fit in? Like if you see them on the court, do they look like they would fit in against high-level competition? And you can definitely say that for all these players. Noelka, who was in the SEC, he was a starter for Mississippi State. However, only averaged 15 minutes per game. So that was a little bit puzzling. Like you start, but you only play 15 minutes. I think it was just because they liked how their big man Murphy, I think his name's Keyshawn Murphy at Mississippi State, just was a better player off the bench. And just, I guess they trusted him a bit more. I think he was a little bit older. Nwoko just finished his sophomore season. But he's a great rebounder. And LSU, if you know anything about last season, LSU needed a lot more rebounding. Their big men just weren't good enough in that respect after Jalen Reed got injured. So that's what I see as his main value. Rashad King from Northeastern, 6'6", 204, 205-pound guard. He's going to be someone I think will be more of a defensive stopper type. He was a big-time scorer, of course, but from what I watched so far of him, I started to watch a little bit more of his film, but I liked his defense. He took on the toughest matchup when they played against Monmouth. If you know a little bit about Monmouth, they have a shooter that's like a 6'8", 39% shooter, shot like 13, 14 per game. He's in the transfer portal, probably going to go to a big-time school named Abdi Bashir. But he was the one that stuck to Bashir, and Bashir had a good game, but he only had a good game when they had to put Rashad King on a front court player. So Rashad King's defense might be something that is of value, and he not a great shooter, but he's a willing shooter. I think shot about 32, 33%. Their other guy, I don't think you mentioned, there's a guy named from Portland, Max McKinnon. Yeah. He's from Australia. He played at Portland before that. He spent a couple years at Elon. He'll be a senior next season. He's someone that I'm really intrigued by. I haven't watched too much of his film yet, but he's a 6'6" shooter and also averaged about 4 rebounds, 3+ assists. And yeah, his jump shot looks very good. I think he shot close to 41% from three. And he had a 43-point game at Portland as well. And the last kid that just came through, Markel Sutton, as of yesterday, he's from Omaha. He played in the NCAA tournament. You might have seen him if you watched the Omaha versus St. John's game. Omaha had gave him a little bit of their run for their money in the first half, but St. John's took over. I think he had 11 points in that game. But Omaha's a 6'9", power forward type with some perimeter skills. He's not afraid of dribbling, not afraid of grabbing the rebound and going. Very productive, 18 points per game. Liked his rebounding as well. I think he's someone that just brings a level of versatility for McMahon, where he has unique. They quite literally didn't have a 6'9" player that can dribble. Damon Collins, I love Collins, but he was not a 6'9" player that could dribble, and he had to play a lot of center for them. So he's someone that if you have next to Jalen Reed, who is reportedly supposed to be returning to the program, then that can be a interesting front court. He didn't have a great three-point shooting season. I think he only shot about 27, 28%. His three-point shot doesn't look broken to me. I think he just has to rep that out, and maybe he gets easier looks at LSU than he did at Omaha, where he was the star of Omaha. So yeah, that's a little rundown on all the new guys here.
See, this is why we have DJ on, man. He knows more about these guys than anybody. But I think just to sum it up, you can see it in all of them, right? Like you can see. It's not to say they're all going to hit. Nobody has a 100% hit rate on transfers, but you look at these guys and go, yeah, I could see where this would help LSU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they fit. I can see the blueprint or see the dream of having a 6'1" point guard, 2 6'6" guys that either can shoot or are really good athletes, a 6'9" power forward that's an all-around player that can also produce offense, and you bring back Jalen Reed, who was having a really good junior season before his season-ending ACL injury. And assuming that they also return a couple of their freshmen, Robert Miller and Curtis Givens, who played a lot as freshmen, and then they come back as sophomores. This team has pieces that can be scary for an opponent, especially if Dedan Thomas hits the way that I think he can hit. And I'm pretty confident the three-point shooting stuff I brought up, he's going to shoot threes. I'm not worried about that he's going to get them up. It's just that he didn't before. Yeah. So he's going to do that. So, yeah, there's really reason to be optimistic about this team. And, yeah, if let's say the 41% three-point shooter that I just brought up, Max McKinnon, let's say he's red hot and he's a laser from three, that makes things easier for everybody else. If a guy can't shoot as well, like a Sutton from Omaha, if they have a different person that makes up for it, that makes Omaha easier to be able to score in the mid-range area or at the basket. And, yeah, we'll see what the incoming high school recruits that they have, if they are even able to contribute. They have a few coming in, 3-4 stars in the top 80. So, yeah, no, I see what they want to imagine, and we'll see if they're done. They may not be done yet.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue into kind of the second half of our show. We're going to talk about who's leaving, and then big picture, what else LSU may be looking for, and kind of give them a grade on how they've done so far. We'll also maybe pick the national championship game. First, we're going to take a 30-second break here on the LSU Sports Insider podcast. Back right after this.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. With quick picks, you can tap right into pre-built, ready-to-bet parlays right from the home screen. And if you miss tip-off, no worries. You can play same-game parlays live during the action. Plus, it's never been easier to find and bet on the biggest matchups of the day, so you can keep up with all the action. Caesars Sportsbook, proud partner of the NBA and the only sportsbook app with Caesars Rewards. Download it today.
Welcome back to the LSU Sports Insider podcast. Zach Ewing with Toyloy Brown. TJ, our advocate, LSU men's basketball beat writer, talking just total roster overhaul for the Tigers here. We encourage you guys to subscribe to the LSU Tigers at NOLA.com YouTube channel. Hit that like button for us while you're down there. Leave us a comment. Tell us who your favorite transfer in to LSU is, or maybe the transfer out that hurts the most. And so we're going to talk about that next. And I think I have my answer, and probably the most popular answer is going to be Vyctorius Miller. I mean, you and I talked after the season and said, I don't know that there's anything on this roster that needs to be nailed down except for these three guys. And Vyctorius Miller was one of them, where you're like, you really probably don't want to lose him. Showed a lot of promise as a freshman. You mentioned at the top of the show, he slumped in conference play. I think maybe the physicality in the long season got to him a little bit, but still, he's a guy I would have liked to see back in Baton Rouge. Corey Chest, some of these other guys were either injured or not playing as much for various reasons. Like, you can't really say that they're big losses. But Vyctorius Miller, to me, is the one that maybe would have liked to see stick around.
Yeah, out of the losses, Vyctorius, Chest, and Collins are the three biggest out of the losses that LSU have to the transfer portal. And yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be good. And I think if LSU was able to retain him, that would probably be your starting shooting guard, because you just know that he has the scoring talent. He showed flashes of it during non-conference, or showed more than flash. He was just good in non-conference, and then flashed it here and there. He had, I think, 17 points against Tennessee, who's not a slouch on defense. He had a different double-digit score in the game against an SEC opponent. He had a couple ankle injuries. I think it just messed up his rhythm, and that's why the numbers took a big dip. And he lost a little bit of favor in the rotation for one game. I think it was against Georgia. He didn't really play, or barely played at all. But Vyctorius, he's a loss, and whoever gets him, he's not announced who he's transferring to yet. They're going to get a 6'5" scorer. That's going to probably be a double-digit guy that can shoot as well. And I assume he's going to get a little bit stronger. He was a little bit older as a freshman. He's already 20 years old, so he'll be a 21-year-old sophomore. Corey Chest is a loss. I already mentioned earlier he's going to Ole Miss. Chest is a fantastic rebounder, like a really gifted rebounder, incredible defensive rebound percentage. It's just that he was a bit too, had too many issues in terms of his decision-making on offense and defense. So he's an incredible athlete, and his athleticism allowed him to try a lot of things. And sometimes the stuff that he would try on defense would allow an offensive rebound for an opponent, or the stuff that he would try on offense would be just crash into three dudes and just turn it over. He also was a poor free throw shooter. The redshirt freshman, he still has a lot of development, I'm sure, ahead of him. It just wasn't really a great fit as a non-shooting power forward. That was a bit erratic in his decision-making. Damian Collins mentioned earlier, I felt really proud of him having a full season under his belt as a redshirt junior, finally getting a chance in 4 years to play a real consistent role. Didn't have that his 2 years at Kentucky. This his first year at LSU. He dislocated his shoulder and was gone. And this year he stepped up, and Jalen Reed's absence just wasn't needed. LSU just needed him, but he just wasn't a good enough rebounder for them, and he doesn't have enough offensive skills to make up for his poor rebounding on the defensive side. Those are the people that left. I think one thing that you should feel optimistic about when it comes to departure is who's most likely to be retained. It's not official yet. It hasn't been announced yet, but he hasn't entered the transfer portal, and that's Robert Miller. That's their freshman big man, 6'10", 7'5" wingspan. He had a really, really rough start to the freshman year, and then he had a really awesome close. I think he averaged about 9 points and like 70% field goal shooting, 5 rebounds the last 6 games. He had a couple really impressive games against like Arkansas. I think he had a really good game the last game of the year against Mississippi State in the SEC tournament. And he's someone that if they can retain him, that's really good depth at the front court. And he's also super young. He's still 18 as we speak, turns 19 a little later this summer. So he's someone that has a really good growth trajectory. Curtis Givens, another freshman. He had a really rough freshman year, didn't really have too many bright spots, but these guys are super young. He's 19, 20. He's going to get better. And as a sophomore, he can probably be a serviceable backup point guard if he stays, assuming that he doesn't enter the transfer portal after this podcast.
You never know. You never know with the transfer portal. But I don't know. Like, Vyctorius Miller's a loss, but holding on to Robert Miller, that's a building block you can really use going forward. And then some of these other guys who left, and this is no personal knock on them. I mean, they're doing what's best for them in their career. But this roster, like, one problem LSU had was they had a lot of dead weight on this roster. Mm-hmm. Like Terrell Ward, obviously I hope everything is going well off the court for him. He had mental health issues, didn't play at all. Like, that's just a roster spot that is not helping. Like Corey Chest, at times showed some promise, but like you said, I don't know that he's a player that helped you win. Noah Boyd barely played. Mike Williams barely played. Like, and some of these incoming guys probably aren't. You can't play everybody. They're not all going to get minutes, but that's the part of the roster you wanted to turn over. And so I think if you can keep some of those younger guys, like we talk about the portal, TJ, like, and how you want to revamp some, you can't survive like that long term in college basketball. You still need a couple of guys who come in as freshman recruits and grow and get better, like a Robert Miller. And I would think LSU wants to do that a little bit more going forward. But for this year, getting these transfers in was the right thing to do.
Yeah, you just need to win now. You have to win immediately. And all these guys that we have as transfer additions, or LSU has as transfer additions, all of them are going to be seniors next year except for Thomas and Nwoko. Markel Sutton from Omaha, he actually is a senior, but he spent his first year at junior college, so that year didn't count towards his Division
He's
I.
got the Diego Pavia rule going on. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I haven't looked at his age, but he's probably 22, 23, so he's even older, which is great. Jalen Reed, he'll be older. He missed off his real junior season. So they don't want to have to start or have to play multiple freshmen like they did last year. They played 4 or 5 freshmen in the rotation at one point. And all these guys, they may not all play 25-plus minutes, but at least they're getting minutes and they're not new to this. They're not new to being in a physical league or being physical players themselves. And yeah, the losses, again, Vyctorius Miller, he's going to be good. But if the guys that they added do hit, they might be more reliable and I guess a bit more efficient because Vyctorius is a great scorer. He may have some spouts of inefficiency because he's not a guaranteed NBA player. At least after his sophomore year, he had a lot of development to still do himself.
Yeah. So if I'm counting correctly, LSU still has one open spot.
So they have 5 added transfers. Assuming that everyone stays, 3 people that retain says 9. And I think they have even Trey as a Green, maybe. We're not even sure about him.
Yeah, we don't know if he's just going to switch over to football full time or what the deal is. So there's an open spot. And
they have 3 recruits. 3 recruits as well. So 12, not counting Trey does.
And somebody else could leave also. So if LSU adds anybody else, where do you see it? Are they in best player available stage? Anybody we could get at any position? Or is there a position on the roster where you say, they could probably use more depth there or use another dude there?
Yeah, point guard. In case I'm not guaranteed that Curtis stays or not, I think he probably stays based off just how long the portal's been open. He hasn't entered it yet, but you can never have just too many point guards just in case injury comes over. Just have another steady ball handler. Doesn't have to be someone special, but someone that's steady in case the injury does come. You can never have too many wings as well. So someone that's around that 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" size. If they can shoot, great. If they're just a physical defender, that's also great. So that's the positional needs that I think of. But if there's somehow they have more in the NIL budget, then of course getting the big fish is incredible. Put people down a rung on the ladder of I guess how good they are, how much they might play. But I don't think they probably have a big fish. Assuming I think Dedan was their big fish and Markel Sutton was their second fish because he was a really good player on the NCAA team. But no, point guard, like a backup as well as maybe another wing for depth would be the 2 things that I'd look at.
All right, so we'll continue to watch the portal as LSU continues to shop. But let's finish here. LSU has all of this turnover. They have brought in all these players we're talking about, Dedan Thomas being the headliner. They have lost a bunch of players, Vyctorius Miller probably being the headliner there, but also Cam Carter, sorry. Cam Carter. I got football in my brain.
Yeah,
Cam Carter, who was their best player last year, is out of eligibility. I did see there's no chance he comes back, right? Just real quick.
It's very unlikely if I had to put. So he wouldn't mind it when I spoke to him. He said he would love if there's a possibility of that. There's another player that's trying to get a 5th year himself that's in the portal right now. Funny enough, Efton Reed. So he's a former LSU recruit himself. He played 4 years. Gonzaga, 1, 2 at Wake Forest, 1 at LSU. Very unlikely. I don't see it, but
there are no rules anymore, man. Like, we don't know.
There's it's the wild, wild west.
The NCAA just makes stuff up now, so we don't, like, maybe Cam Carter's come back, and if that happens, then I think you're really cooking with gas if you're LSU. But let's assume for now that he's gone.
It's safe to assume that he's gone.
Yeah, so we're assuming today, April 7th, that it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, that he's gone. Okay? So LSU loses its best player. They do bring back Jalen Reed, who presumably will be healthy. Dedan Thomas to run the point. Vyctorius Miller's gone. Some of the other bit pieces are gone. As of right now, April 7th, is LSU better than it was on March 7th? Do you think this roster is in a better place?
Yep, they're a better team. They have more talent. And it's not just about they have just amazing, better players. These guys are good. We'll see how good they are, especially the ones that come from mid-major level, maybe some lower major type of schools. But they have more pieces to mess around with. I don't want to be too cruel, but McMahon didn't really have a lot of things to go to in his toolbox once the Jalen Reed injury happened. Tyrell Ward was supposed to be important, and he never played a game because he had to focus on his mental health. So just by sheer number of guys that I think are experienced, you can trust that they have a level of athleticism that could sustain in the SEC as well. And they have a really awesome point guard that can break down off the dribble. They have more things to mess around with if things don't go well, and there will be changes. The starting lineup at the first game of the year may not be the last one that starts when it comes to the SEC tournament and all these things, but they have more things that they can go to if things go wrong, which is all a coach can ask for, just have more options if stuff doesn't work out. But in terms of just pure talent, I think they're better.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of we can have two parts of this conversation, and one is that Matt McMahon's hands were tied a little bit last year, especially once Jalen Reed went down, and he didn't have a lot of adjustments he could make. Mm-hmm. You could also say, well, Matt McMahon's responsible for building this roster, and he should have left himself more outs. I mean, we could have that conversation too. But as far as the 3 weeks or so since the season ended, and just what he's been able to do, I think you have to give him a pretty good grade. And we can also bring back the discussions of the breaking news this morning with Yasir Rosemont coming in as an assistant coach, former associate head coach, and then Ronald Dupree coming in as a general manager. Some more macro level changes, but so far so good, I think, for LSU this offseason. Now, having said that, TJ, they had to have a good offseason. Not only did you have to get better, you had to get a lot better from a team that was 3-15 and not competitive in so many SEC games. I mean, 7 teams in this league made the Sweet 16. You're not, oh, we need to get a little bit better. We're right there. If you're going to compete with Sweet 16 teams, you got to get a lot better.
Yeah, no, 100%, and that's why I'm going to deep dive these mid-major players. I did my deep dive on Dedan. I'm very high on Dedan and his talent, and I've done more about Rashad King, and a couple other guys. But yeah, they have to have these dudes hit. Maybe a miss. It's hard to hit on everybody, of course, but you have to have a lot of these dudes hit as far as being productive players that stand out amongst a talented SEC, which is not going to get less talented. That's my hunch. SEC's not going to have worse players next year than they did this past season. The NIL budgets are still going to be high, I'm sure. So yeah, they have to be great, and I think everyone at LSU, McMahon especially, knows it. And I think they feel pretty good about at least the idea of what their team is going to look like with the size, with rebounding. They definitely didn't. That was a big key. I also noticed everybody can rebound. Maybe not Dedan because he's a point guard, a smaller point guard, but everybody on the team, even their shooter that they got, averaged 4 or 5 plus rebounds. And even though they were the best player, they didn't slouch on that. So they don't want to have any of the same mistakes be a repeat offense next season.
All right, so long way to go. The portal is still open. We'll see if LSU has more changes to come. We'll update you as things go here on the LSU Sports Insider podcast. Going to wrap things up with this. Florida versus Houston tonight, 7:50 p.m. national championship game. TJ, who you got?
I'm torn. I picked Florida in my bracket. I think the roster is really complete. I'm rooting for Houston personally just because I love Sampson, just everything he's about and how underrated he is as a program builder, not even just a pure culture builder. So I'm going with Houston. That's my gut.
I think I'm going Houston too. Now, I've picked against Florida a lot in this tournament, and I've been wrong a lot. I keep thinking it's time for their run to end. They keep seeming to sneak by, and then they find another, one more performance in them. So they're obviously one win away from the national championship. It'd be the SEC's first national championship, I think, in 11 years. Kentucky 2014. Do I have that year right? Or No, maybe going back to 2012 even. With Anthony Davis would have been the last one. So
Anthony Davis,
it's been 13 years, I think, since the SEC has had one. So they've got a chance at one. But yeah, I think Houston's just, man, they're a team full of grown men. we saw that at the end of the Duke game.
They beat
too.
Duke, and Duke seemed unbeatable. So it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to erase that from my memory.
All right, so that's tonight. We're looking forward to that. And then it is truly and fully the offseason in college basketball. We will continue to track things. Our producer today was Amelia Decor. Do I have that right, Amelia? LaCour. Sorry. I'll get it right. The newly named Amelia LaCour. And he's Toyloy Brown III. I'm Zach Ewing. Thank you for watching the LSU Sports Insider Podcast.